Welcome to the Front Porch with Brian Beaudry.
So let's talk a little bit. From what I understand, you had a key role in setting up this, I guess, point the way type thing with Children's Ground in Australia.
Yeah.
I assume that's the correct name. I think I'm remembering.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, good. So what are we doing with Children's Ground?
So just taking the broad view, I thought it was important that the Asia Pacific region business was connected in kind of a systematic way to an organization that we could help benefit, rather than this kind of what we had been doing, some sporadic stuff where we'd go. There's an urban children's farm near the office. Yeah. We'd been down there and we'd done a work day with them and contributed to what they do, and we'd done a collections drive for another organization, and it was all worthy stuff and great, and they benefited from those things. However, I felt that if we could coalesce our efforts into one organization, that would be more effective ultimately. Yeah, and so I really wanted to try and find an organization that fit with our values, and one of the biggest disadvantaged groups in Australia is Indigenous children. They are way behind the national average on pretty much every metric that counts: health outcomes, education, employment, all those things. Yeah. And so what Children's Ground does, so I began searching for something interesting. Yeah. There's tons of organizations that are helping these kids. Yeah. With some government assistance, or maybe it's just community backed, or a combination of the two. And so that wasn't necessarily a problem, but I wanted to find something interesting. And the interesting thing that I found with Children's Ground is that they have a generational approach to change, which instinctively is important, I think. To be able to work with kids from when they join school or kindergarten at age 5 or whatever it is, all the way through into adulthood, to be able to support that journey and embed change early and set up a framework of support early is really important. Yeah. And not just to, there's a water bomb dropping some money on a community for a year and then see you and that they're never heard from again. I think they're demonstrably less effective than that long engagement approach. So that was what attracted me to it.
So it sounds like that's really it's really every part of it is just about building that long-term partnership and commitment, rather than it being these one-off things, which are great in the short term, but we really wanted to partner with someone for the long term and make a long-term impact.
Yeah, I think that's important. And there's two aspects of that. There's what they do, which is effective long-term engagement, and then for us to be able to support that by a long-term engagement, I think is important as well.
Yeah. So what are we doing as Point of Rental to help support what's going on at Children's Ground?
So phase one is monetary support, and I deliberately wanted to think about it in 2 phases. One is let's get some material support to them, which is financial assistance. They can decide how that's best spent or invested. And then phase 2, which is kind of where we're starting to head into now, is how can we help their organization from a kind of business standpoint? There are opportunities to do, mentorships, or for them to do internships with our company, understanding what it's like to go to a workplace every day. Yeah. And you've got to remember, some of these kids are living in some of the remotest parts of the world, literally hundreds, if not thousands of miles from the nearest kind of urban center. Yeah. And so their concept of what it might be like to get a job is almost non-existent in some cases. Yeah, and that informs a lot of the ultimate disadvantage that they experience, because they're just not connected with that, and they basically just do what their parents always did, which is not necessarily going to school or thinking about vocational outcomes or anything like that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine where you could be if you have no idea that certain things even exist.
Yeah, what's that saying? What you can see, you can be.
Yeah,
I think, and for many of those kids, they never see a life of success or growth. So that's important. So the idea was let's get something in place that starts to have some immediate effect. And what we decided to do was to donate a percentage of our revenue to them. So we're donating 1% of all new sales to their organization.
Awesome.
Which is great. So every new customer that comes through the door, the implementation and ACV, as well as new customer spending, so existing customer spending new money.
Yeah.
All of that gets pulled, and we write them a check each month for a percentage of our sales for that month. What I think is important, in business and in life is to be able to sort of embed sort of process-driven habits that things just happen because you set it up that way.
Yeah.
And we get super busy every day, and I think one of the problems we confront when we're thinking about trying to help an organization like Children's Ground is we need some kind of mechanism that just makes that happen.
Yeah.
So the idea of being able to donate a percentage of revenue every month just makes that clock tick, which is fantastic for us, and it means that I don't have to be thinking, 2:00 in the morning, I wake up, I'm like, oh, damn, what are we going to do for Children's Ground this month?
Yeah.
And that becomes burdensome, and ultimately I'm probably not going to execute on that.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to make sure that we had the nuts and bolts of a regime, maybe not the best word,
Yeah.
a regime in place that enabled us to help them every month without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the phase 2 that I referred to, I don't know, do you want to ask me some questions about
Sure,
what
yeah,
that
yeah.
looks like?
Why is it important to not just have that recurring thing, that automatic, like, hey, no matter what happens, we've done a thing to help them?
Yeah.
Why is it important to go beyond that and to do phase 2 of this project?
Yeah, I think it's a money can't buy aspect that we all benefit from experiential learning, and I think by trying to connect our organization with their organization, people to people, can really deliver some benefits, because those kids get access to something that's completely different to their experience. So we're a city-based software company, which is almost literally thousands of miles in difference from somebody living in a remote community who maybe goes to school, maybe doesn't. So we're really polar opposites. And I think being able to set some stuff up that enables those two organizations to connect has got to be really beneficial for those kids. And then second to that, I think the Children's Ground organization has a head office in Melbourne. It's actually really just totally coincidentally is about half a mile from the office in Melbourne. Wasn't one of the reasons that I picked the organization, but it turns out their office is around the corner, so I'm able to go there and have coffees and see what they're doing. Yeah. And then they have some sort of remote satellite operations which are closer to the communities they're working with.
Makes sense.
Those in themselves are a long way away from anything. There's a town right in the middle of Australia called Alice Springs, which is, in terms of the outback, that is a massive city, but it's 20,000 people.
Okay.
So it's a town, right? And so they have an organization there, and they also have one in a city called Darwin, which is named after Charles Darwin.
I was going to say, I've heard of it.
The very far north of Australia. It's, I think, closer to Indonesia than anywhere else in Australia.
Okay.
So it's pretty remote as well.
Yeah.
So they have two satellite organizations there and in Alice Springs. And the idea that those organizations can benefit from some of the stuff we do, business processes, innovation, is, I think, another avenue to explore. And we've just started kind of talking about that as well.
Yeah, especially since at least you and a lot of, well, actually the whole company has gone through a lot of recent growth.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can help them experience a lot of growth and get them helping more people as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's correct. They do part of their program I didn't mention before is that graduates of the program then become mentors in the program if they choose to, and they're good at that. And so I recently met with two of the mentors who had previously been in the program when they were school kids.
Yeah.
They'd come to Melbourne. They're kind of doing a tour. The organisation brought them down, and they were meeting some sports stars, Indigenous sports stars, sort of as an aspirational thing, connecting with sponsors like us. And so I was able to sit down and talk to them about the difficulties of trying to make change. And I guess that experience for me brought into very stark relief the challenges involved.
Yeah.
Somebody like me who's a guy that's grown up in the city, lots of help around me, I haven't really had to struggle for too much.
Yeah.
These guys are making a huge difference in the lives of others, totally different to me, and all sorts of challenges that I've never had to think about. So it was really interesting talking to them about that. And I think that probably helped me to recalibrate my expectations a little bit about what an organization like that can achieve. That there's a lot of stuff that's super tough to solve.
Yeah.
And maybe on reflection, maybe I'd gone into that with a little bit of a starry-eyed vision about, how we could help.
Yeah.
And I think I'm probably a bit more grounded in reality, having talked to them about, that they don't really have reliable internet, for example. So the idea of being able to do school via Zoom, it's not really a thing. And I'd kind of gone and think, well, of course, since we've had the pandemic, everybody's tuned into Zoom.
We have all
now.
these tools.
Yeah.
I mean, God.
And they're like, yeah, that's not really part of our world.
Yeah.
So that helped to, I guess, help me to understand the reality of the situation much better.
All right. I don't know how to ask exactly this, but it seems like what seemed interesting to me about that is this idea that there's these mentors that have recently graduated from whatever program, and they're basically mentors at I would assume a really young age.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it like? I know when I was younger, I was definitely not responsible enough to be a mentor for really anyone.
Probably still not.
That's fair. That's fair. I give myself too much credit. But what's it like dealing with people that are kind of in that situation where they're forced to, I don't know if forced is the right word, but forced to be a mentor even at such a young age when they're still growing, they're still experiencing, they're still learning all this stuff.
Yeah. It's an interesting question to consider. I having been a mentor myself, I think part of mentoring is growing oneself as well. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a symbiotic relationship, and there are, there are benefits for the mentor in, I guess, being able to reflect on their own situation and be insightful about their own growth. As a sort of counterpoint to the person that they're helping to grow.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting. The age thing, that they probably don't fully understand what it is they don't know or where they're heading, but it's all part of the journey. And I think being able to kind of having the courage to immerse yourself into something like that at a young age is probably testament to the power of the program. There's, I guess, a natural instinct to want to give back to something that's benefited you so much. Yeah. And, the fact that you've got, it's part of the program, right? To become a mentor is something significant. And then that continues to grow you and enhance your journey further from there.
Awesome. And that's something that we're hoping in phase 2 that not only you, but other, at least Australian pointers would be able to participate in and benefit from on their own right.
Absolutely. So the one of the goals now, which we're sort of exploring somewhat slowly, everybody's busy, so we do our best to fit it into our third, fourth, fifth jobs, and those guys are the same.
Yeah.
One of the things we're exploring is how our teens, I guess later teens in the program, are thinking about work.
Yeah.
And whether we could have somebody who does a remote phone answering for us, or some data input for our finance team, or here's a spreadsheet, go sort all that, and try and help them understand some of the things we do day to day in business. And then the other side to that is I think I mentioned before, what are some of the things that we do really well in our business in terms of process and customer relations that they could learn from as an organization. So not the people who are benefiting from their programs, but the actual people delivering the program.
Yeah.
How we could connect our business with their business, and maybe we can understand some of what they do and bring that into what we do, and vice versa. So I think just connecting the two organizations is the goal. How that practically rolls out, I'm not sure yet. That'll be
we'll see.
Podcast part 2 maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that people need to know about Children's Ground or our partnership with Children's Ground in the near future?
No. I've said everything.
Is there anything you want to say to people going to Hire 23?
Yeah. Love people to drop by our stand, and I'd be interested in hearing about other businesses, because a lot of our customers are businesses that are interested in supporting great causes like Indigenous kids. So I'd be interested in hearing about those experiences and talking to them about what we're working on. There are a couple of hire and rental businesses which are Indigenous owned and run. A couple of them are customers, so I'd be interested in talking to them about what it is they do and how it is that they channel what comes out of their business back into their local communities. That'd be really interesting too.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's stand. Is there a difference between booth and stand? I know we use booth in the U.S. and then there's stand a lot in other countries.
We say stand.
Okay,
I think.
So you guys are at stand 13.
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told. That's what I keep typing in all these emails.
All right. Stand 13 at the Hire Show, May 24th, 25th in Sydney. It's going to be great. We're a huge supporter of the HRIA, which is the Hire and Rental Industry Association. Bit of a tongue twister. Not as easy as ARA.
I was going to say, there's a reason we say HRIA.
Yeah. And, we're a really big supporter of the organization. We think that, developing new talent in that industry is important too. And we want to help drive tech innovation and drive innovative thinking in the industry as well, which is why we set up our tech sponsorship partnership with the HRIA. So Point of Rental is the official technology partner of the HRIA. And the idea behind that is we're bringing stories to their magazine and to the show about new thinking in the industry, not necessarily digital innovation, but mechanical innovation, how those two intersect. And I'll be hosting a panel called The Future of Hire, which is on the Wednesday, which I think is the 25th off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't ask us to look at a calendar right now.
Right. And so we're hosting a panel with 4 heavy hitters in the industry, from general equipment to party and event. Awesome. We're all going to be talking about what the future of hire looks like from a digital perspective, customer experience perspective, equipment perspective. What are the new trends that are going to drive the industry over the next kind of 2, 3, 5 years? So that's going to be really interesting. Super excited about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming all the way to America to explain this to me.
Just to do this podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Well, have a good one.
You too.